Hello everyone. Today I'll be looking at all of the roles in HLTV Fantasy and ranking them from always pick to thrash. And that is thrash, not trash. Of course, I have not misspelled it. It is totally not by accident. So I don't know if there's much more to it. I will just be ranking each of them, and yeah, let's start with the headshot machine one. So if you don't know, you get the max bonus from above 0.6 and a small bonus from above 0.35 and penalty from 0.35 or below. And those are, well, headshot percentages. So this is a good pick for a lot of players. There's a lot of players who have like 60%, maybe not quite 60%, but very close to 60%. And it's quite a high likelihood that you hit it if you have a winning team. And the way I have to look at this every time is either way, you want your team or the player to win. And if they win, they're most likely going to get more kills, and then they're going to get more headshots. And the headshot percentage should be player if you're better when you win than when you lose. So a lot of the time, even though their average headshot percentage might not be quite 0.6, they will still get to 0.6 within the game. I wouldn't say it's always pick. You certainly can make a case for one of the others making it instead of it, but I would say it's ranked quite highly and very good. Next up, it's the Noob. Okay, so you get a max bonus when the rating is below 0.8. You get a small bonus when it's below 1.15 and a penalty when it's 1.15 or above. I would not recommend picking this one. It's just that when you pick players, you really want them to do well. This is very different from like bottom of the scoreboard booster, where you have to play it anyways, so it's not that bad. But for Noob, I wouldn't ever pick a player who I think is gonna do that badly, and I would always rather put one of the others on it. So we will have to have this in thrash. Do this. Yeah, you can. Okay. let's just fix that right there. So yeah, I would not recommend picking trash or noob booster. It's just not very good. Next up, multi-kill. So you get the max bonus from above 0.2. You get a small bonus from above 0.125 and a penalty from 0.125 or below. And those are multi-kills per round. It is good. You have to have it on a good player. And a lot of the times what I've found is if you have a good player, it's oftentimes good to have it be the AWP player. But if you have one of those aim stars, it might be better to have the headshot percentage if it's like a rifler. So there are, or even like to have the, stat hunter. If you have like one of those star players, it's very hard to find a case for a multi-kill sometimes. But depending on the player statistics, it could be worth it as well. So it's I guess somewhere between might be worth it and very good. We'll see. I might shift it back to might be worth it from very good. I probably will leave it in very good though. So next is the main AWP. So if you don't know, main AWP is max bonus above 0.25 AWP kills per round, small bonus from above 0.15 AWP kills per round, and penalty from 0.05 AWP kills per round. So obviously if you have this on an AWP player, that requirement is quite easy to hit. You will most likely get 0.25 AWP kills per round. And again, this is keeping in mind that you will most likely not be. You will most likely be. You have to kind of assume that the player is gonna win the game, and get to play the AWP a lot. At least enough to get some impact with it. Of course, there are situations where the AWP player just doesn't get any kills, but it's very rare. So actually, I would put this in always pick. I have a hard time coming up with a team where it wouldn't be beneficial to have the AWP role on the player. And because of that, you have to pick one AWP player, of course. If you find yourself making a team without an AWP role, I would maybe consider switching out a couple of the players and seeing if you can have most of the same core, but with an AWPer from one of the teams. Because this role is very influential, you will almost always get the 5 points from the AWP role. Okay, let's go to the next one. Support. So support rounds, assist, survive, or trade. For the max bonus, you have to have 25% of the rounds be like that. Small bonus above 10% and penalty 10% or below. It's a powerful role, especially because you will have to usually have at least a couple of not that great players. And usually, how I go with that, I will go with the IGL role and I will go for the support role on the other, because usually they're not that good in not such a good rifler, or if they're not the star player on the team, they will usually have pretty good support stats. And you might want to go look into maybe picking a not that great player who is not like the best player on the team, but if they have great support stats, it might even be worth looking at just picking them up for this role, because there's not that many roles for the star player. But I would probably put this, well, I think it's probably like this. Oops, where support is even ahead of like headshot and multi-kill. I think this is the way to go with this. But it's not like always pick, because there are scenarios where you have the AWPer, you have a high headshot percentage player who's made, and then someone you might just want to go with multi-kill if they get a lot of multi-kill rounds. But yeah, I would still say that most of the time the support role should be worth it. Then we have the T-side rating, or the attacker. So max bonus if your T-side rating is above 1.35, small bonus with above 0.85, and penalty when 0.85 or below. Getting the max bonus is quite hard. Like, if you find a player who is really a lot better on the T side than the CT side, it's possibly worth it. But most of the time, you would probably be better off going for multi-kill, or maybe a Clutch King or something like that, or Entry Fragger, one of those other roles. So I would say attacker is probably might be worth it, because players usually have a lower rating on the T side than the CT side. That is something I've kind of come to realize when playing HLTV Fantasy. It's sometimes worth it, but I would say not very commonly. Then the Clutch King. So clutches per round, max bonus from above 0.040, a small bonus from above 0.001, and a penalty from 0.001 or below. Clutch King is maybe even surprisingly good in my opinion. I think it's kind of undervalued. There's a lot of players who do clutch a decent amount of rounds. So if you don't know, 0.040 is basically, I guess it's 4% of rounds. Yes, so it's 4% of rounds. And let's say I think I played, for example, Shiro with Clutch King, because he was clutching like crazy in Gambit. So I played it on him for the event, and he did very well. So I would also say that Clutch King is probably, it's not very good. I wouldn't say it's very good, but it might be worth it to have a Clutch King every now and then. Next up, the IGL roles. So this is the only, spoiler alert, the only other one I would say always pick. IGL role is, if you don't know, team win match. So you get the max bonus when your team wins, a small bonus when they draw, and a penalty when they lose. This is where one of the main ideas in getting the highest potential amount of points in fantasy comes to play. You want your team to win. You want your team to win to maximize the amount of points you can get. And I think In that case, you have to be kind of crazy not to go for the IGL role. You have to hope that your team wins, and you have to have the IGL role to maximize the points when your team wins. And it's also especially good because it just doesn't matter what the teams, what the players' individual stats are as much anymore. So they don't have to be a good headshot machine or an all player or sick on the CT side or get a lot of multi-kills. They just have to help their team win, and they have to be on the team that wins. It's very simple to use. I think it's kind of overpowered, and I don't think I'm ever gonna not put this on my team. It's the number one role in the game. You have to just play it. Okay, back to the not as good as IGL roles. We have the Stat Hunter. So you get a max bonus when it's above 1.4, a small bonus when it's above 0.85, and penalty when it's 0.85 or below. So I would say it's very difficult to get the max bonus consistently. That's the biggest downfall of Stat Hunter. You almost always will get the small bonus though, if you put it on a good player, like someone who gets high stats. Like let's look at Zaiwu. So Zaiwu, for example, currently has a rating of 1.28. Getting a 1.4 rating is very difficult. It's very high. So I think it's probably might be worth it. I'm probably putting it between these two. I don't think Attacker is very good. I think I would more likely be going for Stat Hunter. It's kind of difficult to differentiate between Clutch King and Stat Hunter, actually. I think they're both decent options. But I think we go... I'm going to put Stat Hunter above Clutch King. There's not that many good clutch players. That's kind of the problem for Clutch King. There's not that many players who will consistently clutch that many situations in a game. And also, if you look at the idea of you have to be winning your games to maximize the amount of points, if your team is winning and destroying the opponents, they're going to get high stats, but they're not going to get many clutches. So I guess that's also one reason to put it above it. Next, Entry Fragger. So first kills per round. Max bonus when it's above 0.15. Small bonus when it's above 0.05, and a penalty when it's 0.05 or below. It's pretty good. The biggest problem, I guess, is that a lot of teams use their AWP player as their number one entry guy. In a lot of situations, the AWP player will get the entry. And that's why it kind of goes over the AWP role in a way. I still think it's very good. And there's a lot of riflers as well who get high entry percentage. And I would probably even put it above, like... It's pretty difficult. I think multi-kill is probably more consistent. I think it's still very good. I would consider it very good. Put it here. It's pretty... It's usable. Actually, I think, you know what, we're dropping Attacker to very situational. There's way too little players that I'm looking at it. I think it's very situational instead of might be worth it. And CT rating instead is going to be under might be worth it. Let's go on over CT first. So Defender. Max bonus when it's above 1.35. Small bonus when it's above 0.85. And a penalty when it's 0.85 or below. It's usable because people have a higher CT rating quite often than the T rating, but the stats here are still the same. It's still max bonus above 1.35 and so on and so on. And players generally have a higher CT rating. Yeah, there's a lot of players who will meet this. I've used this, for example, on Havu's Aerial for a couple events. And he's been just getting the roll boost every time. I still think it's not in under very good. I would probably put it here. Under might be worth it in the middle, quite just after like Stat Hunter. That seems like the best position for it in my opinion. It's like, of course, this tier list is not like conclusive or anything. There are gonna be teams that want to use attacker. There's gonna be teams that want to use Clutch King, and there's gonna be teams that want to use all three of these maybe, and then probably IGL and OP. And that does exist, but it's just how often I guess you would want to pick these is how I rate these. Okay, last one. We have the Camper. So Camper is deaths per round. You get a max bonus when it's below 0.5, a small bonus when it's below 0.8, and a penalty when it's 0.8 or above. Oh, I don't know how to talk anymore. But it's penalty when it's 0.8 or above. I haven't found much use for this. I think the max bonus is difficult to hit consistently. And there isn't like a lot of stats on deaths per round where it's very low. I guess someone like Jame could be a camper because he saves a lot, so he doesn't die quite as much. It just depends so much, I guess, on the game. I feel like there's a very high variance in how often you die. But either way, I think it's too situational. I think it's probably better than the T rating. But it's just, I can't see myself using this often enough. But yeah, I think that's basically it for this one. Yeah, if you want some general takeaways from this video, always use the IGL role. Very often you want to use this, or at least very often. I think you should basically build your team around the AWP role. Usually you want to use these. Usually you make your team out of these. This one might be worth it. And these ones I would stray away from, and this one I would never use. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one. And I don't know which the next one will be, but I will be making a booster tier list as well. Thank you, and bye bye.